you can make a misleading hook to an ad, and you can get a lot of people.
Was that a bird?
Did a bird just fly into the window?
Yeah. There's a thumb stop ratio.
A bird actually just flew into the office window.
There's a good hook right there.
What's up, guys? So one of the most requested comments and DMs I get on IG and TikTok is Facebook ad strategy. And a lot has changed with Facebook ads over the years. So I figured the best person to bring in to talk about this would be our marketing director here at Starke, David Filian, who oversees all of our meta ads and can bring a lot of valuable insights to the conversation. So David, why don't you introduce yourself?
What's up, everyone? David Filian, marketing director here at Starke Marketing. Excited to talk about some meta ads.
Same. So let's jump right into it. So David, obviously you've been managing and running meta ads for a long, long time. And, just here we've spent millions and millions of dollars. Meta ads is a ongoing conversation that has been going on over years. People want to know what's the right strategy, what's the right bidding strategy, what should I be doing? And everyone has their opinions, but in our data from spending just tens of millions of dollars, I think we've gleaned some insights into what is the best way to run meta ads in 2024. So I'm just going to start with a really broad question. How are meta ads different in 2024 than they have been in years past?
So I would say the main difference is how we're setting up campaigns these days, right? So back before, you would break it down, bottom of funnel, middle of funnel, top of funnel, right? And you'd break down your campaign setup like that within platform. And you'd go very niche on your audiences. You'd maybe retarget, X% of video watchers, 75%, and you get very specific. That's when the pixel was really strong. This is before the iOS update. And you could get very niche and specific in your targeting, and things were working well. After the iOS update, and what we've seen recently is that shift has gone from that model to a more simplified account structure that now we say the creative is doing the targeting. That's what we like to say a lot of the time. So now it's more focused of a scaling campaign and a testing campaign.
So when you say this, my gut reaction is it's going to make a lot of marketers really uncomfortable.
Right.
Because throughout history, we've thought about marketing through the lens or prism of top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Being able to control the delivery of creative based on where someone fits into the funnel has always been essential to the consumer journey. So under this new system, why should it not make people uncomfortable?
Yeah, so the funnel still exists, right? But it exists within the creative that you're pushing. And it shouldn't make people uncomfortable because of how much data there is there and how much data that Meta is getting. And if you have a healthy enough budget and there's enough info in your pixel, and you're looking at your landing page, you're looking at all these other things as well outside of platform, then it's the same thing. It's just how you're executing is different.
Right. So if you're leaning into the pixel, that means the pixel is gathering data, the pixel is learning. And if you're saying the creative decides who the audience target is, essentially what you're doing is you're leaning into artificial intelligence, machine learning, and letting the pixel decide who to deliver ads to based on engagement activity within platform.
That's exactly right. So as the ads continue to deliver and you're getting more and more information back, Meta starts to realize who's engaging with this ad, who's converting, who's clicking through, who's purchasing, adding to cart, all of that good stuff. And it starts to take that information and push it to people that are like that person, right? Like lookalike audiences, essentially.
Let me take a step back. So you said if the pixel has enough data. So with someone who's launching a new ad account or a new pixel and the pixel doesn't have enough data, is this the approach that you would still go with? Versus the traditional approach of interest stacking and trying to manipulate the targeting parameters of the platform yourself versus going broad and letting the pixel do the work?
Yeah, so I would still go with the same approach, but I would go a little bit softer in the approach and start a little bit more niche on the ad set level. So, there's CBO and ABO. And CBO is campaign budget optimization. That's where you're setting the budget and adjusting budget on the campaign level, right? So you could have 3 ad sets there, and they're through machine learning, Meta is delivering budget wherever it sees fit, essentially. And that's usually where the conversion is going. So if you have a sales conversion focused campaign, it's going to go wherever the most sales are coming. On ABO, that's ad set budget optimization. So there you're manually controlling the budget for each ad set within that campaign. So with someone with a lower budget or like a not seasoned pixel, I would say we're going at the ad set level at first and figuring out what is our strongest performing audience there. Is it interest stacks? That means, putting in a few different interests. Like let's say it's a boating company and we're looking at boats, yachts, speedboats, things like that, and we're stacking those all together. Or is it a lookalike audience? Does this person already have a list of customers, right? Maybe they haven't advertised on Meta, but they have advertised on Google and TikTok and LinkedIn across the board, and they already have a list of 1,000 customers. We could use that to build that pixel data and start delivering to that audience there. As that gets seasoned, then we start moving to the broad strategy, and the ramp up isn't slow, but it's not super fast either, right? There's a little bit of a dip when you make that shift, but then it starts to really pass where you were before and scale up.
Yeah. So I think it's really important for people to listen to something that you just said, which is even if you're new to Facebook and Meta advertising, and there's a lot of brands who are successful on Google and other places, and they finally start diving into Meta, and they think that because the pixel doesn't have enough data, that they're going to be wasting spend. But the truth is you can use your customer list and data gleaned from other sources to essentially direct the Meta pixel as to where to start, therefore making your campaigns more effective from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing. I mean, we do that even if someone has a seasoned pixel, right? Like you still want to upload that customer list. And with brands with a lot of like different products, we want to do that as well. We want to break them down into different funnels there. What if they're buying, a product that doesn't relate to the main product we're pushing on Meta right now? They could be in a different funnel there.
Yeah. So creative has become the great variable of success in current Meta ads, especially on this strategy of leaning into the pixel and making sure the pixel has enough data, but also has the room to learn within the platform. And then the pixel essentially optimizes against itself, thus getting more effective as time passes on, which means the quality of the ads has way more significance in determining the success of the campaign than it did in years past.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Which is really a marketer's dream. It's almost like things have come full circle, right? Like before, it used to be ad quality, ad creative, that was the king. When Facebook first launched, CPMs were so low that monkeys were making money with Meta ads,
right?
Because it was not saturated, it was cheap, it was underpriced, and people were running just basic image ads across the board, and they were profitable. Whereas now, like, brands need to be spending as much time thinking about ad creative as they do thinking about inside of platform bidding strategies and optimizations.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, creative has upgraded so much, right? And with like TikTok coming in and just organic coming in, and all these creators coming aboard, like you need to get better with your ads. There's so much good stuff out there that now people know when there's a bad ad, they're not really going to pay attention to it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Depending on spend, how are you thinking about the number of different ad creatives a brand is using based on the totality of the spend? How do you factor that in, and what's your thought process going through that?
Yeah, so it really depends. There's a lot that goes into it, and I don't think there's like an exact science. There can be in terms of, you're looking at your CPA and you want to get a certain number of conversions, so you need this many ads to get that conversion. But I wouldn't say really pushing past like 6 to 7 creatives per campaign or ad set. You don't need to go past that really, because then I think you're stretching yourself thin. Even with a really healthy budget, your breakdown should be between the scaling campaign and the testing campaign. And that's how you should be splitting your budget across the board. If you're just throwing so many ads in there, there's so much that it could do. And I don't think you're going to get enough significant learning.
Yeah. This is a big part of the new strategy, right? You just you touched on testing and scaling. Break down testing and scaling campaigns so that people understand what that means.
For sure. So the way we're seeing a lot of Meta ads work now is, like you said, testing and scaling campaigns, right? So testing, we would push on the ad set budget optimization level. And there we're usually going with like our strongest audience. So let's say in this account, our strongest audience is our custom upload list lookalike audience, right? So we uploaded customers, we made a lookalike audience based off them in Meta, and we know that is our strongest audience. So we're testing all of our creative there. And that way we know the variable is not the audience, right? We know that audience works. The variable is now the creative only. This kind of ties in with your last question with the amount of creative. This is where the amount of creative starts to come in, right? So you want to test a specific angle on each ad set. And within that angle, you want to test specific variables at a time, right? So let's say you have an image ad. Let's go with the simple one with the product on there and a headline and no call to action. And you want to say, okay, I want to test variations of this. You're not going to test a different product, a different headline, and a call to action on it because now you don't know which one moved the lever, right? You want to test that same image, same product, same headline, and now add a call to action. Or let's, add another variation to that is don't add a call to action, change the headline. Or don't add a call to action, change the product. And then you go from there. And the variations are unlimited, really.
Because you essentially want an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus if you have different variables, you're not getting good data back on what is actually effective and what is working.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, whenever you see something that's, whatever wins out of that ad set, essentially, you're moving that into your scaling campaign where we're either on a CBO level or advantage shopping campaign. So advantage shopping campaign is fairly new, a couple years old, and it's now starting to get a little bit more sophisticated within Meta where you could exclude audiences or exclude existing customers. And that is probably like the broadest campaign that Meta has right now, right? But it works really well in reaching the right people and scaling. So our winners from the testing campaign get introduced into the advantage shopping or CBO campaign, that is our scaling campaign, and then verse the winners in there, where they just keep going together. Sometimes we're not even turning something off unless we're really getting capped into the amount of ads we have on there, and that's up for debate on the amount of ads.
Yeah. In the testing campaign, are you determining the budget running against each ad, or are you letting Meta optimize budget towards an ad? Because in my mind, I would say if you have different budgets going to different ads, it's, again, not an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, we want to spend at least the average order value, right? So let's say your average order value is $100. Let's say your CPA wants to be $50. We want to spend at least $100, see if this is working. Did we get a purchase? Yes or no? Where do we go from there? If we didn't get a purchase, did we get a checkout, add to cart? Are those hitting the KPIs that we need to hit to see our CPA at the end of the day? Because sometimes you may hit that CPA number and not get a purchase, but you'll get 2 purchases $25 later, and now your CPA is actually where you want it to be. So sometimes you need to let it run and work backwards. What do your CPMs look like, your cost per clicks, click-through rates? I mean, it goes down the board.
So once an ad moves over from the testing campaign to the scaling campaign, just to make it really simple, the testing is the boardroom where you're just sort of figuring it out. You're trying to figure out which ad works, which ad doesn't work, which ad works better than the other ad. Mm-hmm. Once you find a winner, you move them over to the scaling campaign. And now you've said this ad works, it's proven itself to be true, and now we want to run and make money on this ad. Talk about the relationship ongoing between the testing and the scaling campaign, because it's not set it and forget it. It's not like we get our testing ads, we figure out which the winners are, we move them over to scaling, and now we're just good, because we're constantly testing new ads. So how are you benchmarking the ads that are constantly being added to the testing bucket and deciding when to move them over to the scaling bucket to reference them against ads that are already performing on the scaling side?
Yeah, so are they hitting like our early winners, right? Are hitting our early KPI winning sections, I guess. I don't know really how to phrase that right there, but essentially, if they're hitting CPAs at an early spend, we know it's going to scale correctly. It's not always perfect, right? If we put it into a scaling campaign, it might not hit exactly as it was in the testing campaign to start, but long term it should, because it's a good ad and it's converting. So we're looking at it like that, and then as we continue to test, we're testing against winners over and over and over, right? So in the scaling campaign, let's say there's 5 ads, we're continually making variations. Like there's no running out of variations. And then we see if there's a winner. And sometimes a winner will stay there for months, honestly. You could run an ad for a long time. People underestimate like how long you can really run an ad. You could put a couple $100,000 behind the same ad and it will still work. And there are times that sometimes maybe it's seasonal, or you're running a specific offer or something like that, and you can't really do that. Or sometimes an ad has a short lifespan. Yeah.
It ties so directly to the size of the addressable audience, right? Mm-hmm. And this I think about this a lot in the agency world and the marketing world as a whole, which is the separation between media buying and creative. And in this new world of meta, but marketing as a whole, it speaks to how important it is for there to be proper synergy between creative departments and media buying departments. Yeah. Because, like you said, you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars behind an ad. You can put millions of dollars behind an ad.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually, you will start to see ad fatigue. It just depends what the threshold is. And it's important for media and data to be informing creative on how to adapt, adjust, and come up with new concepts based on even the winning ads. Because we always think about optimization as losing ads. If an ad is not working, where can we make the strategic pivots and changes in order to get that to become a winning ad? But even with the winning ads, whether the shelf life is a month or a year or $10,000 or $1 million, there is a shelf life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would say we do most of our testing on winning ads, actually, right? So this angle works. This video works. This hook works. Let's test it with a different hook, right? Or maybe the hook is really good and we know we're getting people in the first 3 seconds, but we're not holding them yet. Let's test it with a middle part of that video, the 6 to 9 seconds. And let's see if we can increase it even more. And it's really like incremental, the difference is, right? Your ROAS might go from 3 to 3.2 or 3.3, but those little changes on a big scale make a big difference.
I think a lot of people don't understand that there is an actual science behind testing whether ads are performing or not, or not performing. A lot of people think it's all just creativity, but we're measuring very, very key benchmarks and data points in order to determine whether an ad is effective. So talk through thumb stop ratio, what it means, hold rate, what it means, click-through rate, what it means, and how you are monitoring these data points in order to make ads more effective.
Yeah, for sure. So thumb stop ratio is essentially your hook, right? So on a video, you're looking at the percentage of people from your impressions that are watching the first 3 seconds of the video. There we want to see between like 30 to 40% is a good ad. So if like 30 to 40% of people are watching the first 3 seconds of your video, that's a pretty solid ad. And you're getting them engaged.
Which is why it's called a thumb stop ratio.
Thumb stop ratio.
Literally just like thumb stop.
You're literally stopping, right? Like you're stopping the scroll for those 3 seconds. And if we're not seeing those numbers, we're saying like, okay, what is wrong with this intro here? Can we change up, the actor or the message or the pain point that we're talking about? Sometimes the reverse happens where people think thumb stop is like the only important metric, right? And they'll be like, oh, we have an 80% thumb stop ratio, but the video or the hook has nothing to do with the video. It's just like something completely random that people are like, oh, what's this? And then they're like, oh, wait, it's an ad. And they just leave it after that. So there is some balance, right? The hook rate is the percentage of people watching essentially like 50 to 75% of your video, right? So are you holding them there? I'm sorry, hold rate, not hook rate. And are you holding them in the video? So that's like the middle, right? Getting people to watch 100% of your video, very difficult thing. But if you're getting people to watch like 75% of it, you're doing a really solid job there. We want to see that number be like 10, 15%. And there we're testing a bunch of different things, right? Like how can we keep them engaged? Are we talking about the benefits of the product? We're talking about how it's going to help them, how it's different from competitors down the line,
Because I think what you said is very important, because you have to look at the relationship between the thumb stop ratio and the hold rate. Because if you look at either one in just pure isolation, you can manipulate the numbers to be higher or lower. I don't know why someone would want lower, but you can manipulate them to be higher, but it doesn't achieve the overall purpose. And what I mean is you can make a misleading hook to an ad, and you can get a lot of people.
Was that a bird?
Did a bird just fly into the window?
Yeah. There's a thumb stop ratio.
A bird actually just flew into the office window.
There's a good hook right there.
But like I was saying, you can manipulate the hook and you can be extremely misleading. You're going to get a lot of people to stop and pay attention, but the moment they get into the meat of the content of the ad, they tune out because it doesn't relate to them. It's almost the media version of clickbait.
Right.
You create a misleading headline, they get to the website, but the moment they get there, they hit the back button, they bounce. And while you drove traffic, you wasted money because it didn't achieve the end goal.
Right.
So you want a healthy thumb stop ratio, but it needs to tie into the hold rate. And if you have a high thumb stop ratio and you have a low hold rate, you need to evaluate what your ad is actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're going from there and saying, like you just said, it's not the only thing that matters, right? You're looking at the click-through rate. What's the percentage of people going from the ad to your website? Then you're looking at the conversion rate. You're looking at the add to cart rate, the checkout rate, the purchase rate, all of that down the line. So it's like you could have a good video that people are watching, but are they clicking through and making purchases? Because at the end of the day, that's our goal, right? Unless you're going purely awareness and you want people to just watch the video, but most of the time we're looking for sales.
I want to talk about Meta in 2024, and especially as it relates to the entire marketing funnel and ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think this has happened years ago, but people just haven't caught on. In the early days of Facebook, you essentially lived inside of the platform, and you didn't need a whole lot of ancillary tools to see success. Whereas for many, many years now, Meta is just a part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a lot of other things in play in most instances to make Meta successful. Talk about the full funnel and the importance of the other aspects of Meta campaigns.
Yeah, so we know that, like you said, Meta is one part of the whole equation, right? So we know when we're running Meta ads successfully, we actually see better results on Google ads as well, on YouTube ads, on the overall conversion rate for the brand. That could be like on Amazon, on organic search, everywhere, right? So Meta is, you're building the awareness, but a lot of conversion can actually occur on Google ads. So you have to look at everything kind of together, right? And while, yeah, you can put specific benchmarks and KPIs per each platform, you have to understand that they're all working together. I mean, we've worked with so many brands that, they'll be running their Amazon store before they come to us, and they'll have certain metrics and certain sales numbers there, and then we start running Meta ads, and in-platform won't look as great as we think it does, right? Let's say a 2 to 3x return on ad spend, but we know their Amazon has now gone up 60, 70%, and the correlation is there, right? Then we have to look at like email marketing as well. Sometimes we'll be in Meta ads platform seeing certain results, and we'll say, okay, what happened on this weekend that our conversion rate was so high? Let's look at our email marketing, right? Did we send out a promo email marketing blast over the weekend? And they could be tied together.
It's important for people to really understand that point, which is if you're running Meta in isolation, you're hampering your campaign because you want to think about the entire picture. I don't think there's been a single client that's come to us in the last 3 or 4 years for Meta advertising specifically where we haven't taken over a different aspect of what they do because we know it all ties together. And like you said, Meta has a correlative effect on Google ads because of the awareness that Meta drives. It has an effect on the size of the email list. And instead of just having that be a byproduct of Meta advertising, brands need to be ahead of thinking about that process and proactively building that ecosystem so that you see that relationship between Meta and the other forces.
Right, exactly.
I want you to share a little bit, because I think sometimes data is good, but data can also be misleading.
Sure.
And it's important to have someone who understands the entire picture, having eyes on everything that's going on. And I want to talk about, one of the Mattel brands that we work with, and we won't go into details to not violate NDAs, but we were running a video ad that was significantly underperforming certain image ads. But I don't want to. I want you to explain what happened because I think it's going to be valuable for people to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So this is, something we talked about before called the Facebook breakdown effect. Right, you could Google this. Meta has like an article on it. A bunch of other people have written on it. There's Twitter threads on it. And what that means is essentially like judging certain campaigns at the campaign level or the ad set level instead of at the ad level specifically. And while that kind of works like against of like a lot of like creative testing and stuff like that, of course we're still looking at the ad level, but it's showing like some of your creative might be doing more of a lift than the data shows, right? So for example, with this Mattel campaign, we were running a video ad. It was significantly underperforming in terms of return on ad spend. But when we turned it off, everything else dropped, right? When we turned it back on, everything went right back up. So what's happening there is essentially people are watching this video ad, they're getting interested, they're seeing it, the watch rate was fantastic, and they're not converting through that video. But then 2 days later, 3 days later, maybe a week later, they're seeing a static ad and saying, oh, they're making that connection, they're clicking through the static ad, and now they're making a purchase. But that static ad is getting the conversion and getting the attribution there. So it's looking at it on the ad set level and the campaign level as well. It's not like a perfect science, right? There is some like art to it, but it's having to understand that on every different level and showing like this actually may be doing more than what it is showing in the platform.
This is something we see all the time with brands that either have a product, sell a service, where the buying process is one that's considered, and it's going to take some time. Because generally you're running ad creative that has high educational value, and as long as people are consuming that content, they're moving through your funnel, even though that's not how we're optimizing campaigns. But from just a consumer psychology standpoint, they're getting more engaged, they're consuming ad creative, they're learning more about the product or service. But what actually gets them to become a customer is a retargeting campaign that you launched, giving them a 20% offer.
Right.
So that retargeting ad takes all of the credit for the heavy lifting that the entire educational ad library has done,
right,
and it skews your data, which is exactly what you're saying. So if someone was just looking at it from a data perspective, they would say, this is the ad that's working, let's turn all of this off. But you never get that ad to win without the ads that came before it.
Exactly.
Let's talk boring stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah, with attribution. So attribution is, everyone that we work with, it is the most important thing. Is people want to know where the money is coming from, how the money is coming, wherever it's going. And attribution has become increasingly challenging in our pixel stripping world of 2024, iOS changes. So tell me about attribution in 2024 via Meta.
So it's not perfect. And there's a few different ways that we go about it. You can set your campaigns to click only attribution, right? 1 day click or 7 day click. I don't think there's a for sure correct way to do it. I think it depends on the account. And this goes for everything we've been talking about, really. And then there's also 1 day view or 7 day view. They also introduced like 1 day engaged view as well. So there's different ways you could report on it within platform. And I think it's very important to look at those as you're looking at data within the platform. You want to see how it's attributing these purchases. Is it from a 7 day click? Is it from that 1 day view? Is the 1 day view maybe over attributing, right? You want to look at Google Ads that day. You want to look at Google Analytics or your third party reporting software and see like, where is this purchase coming from? What is Google saying? What is Triple Whale, the reporting software saying, right? What is Shopify saying? So it's really taking all of it and putting it together and making that decision there. What we like to talk about with a lot of brands, like we talked about before, is marketing efficiency ratio, right? That's saying taking all of your marketing across the board, Meta, Google Ads, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever it is, and looking at your bottom line, right? Like how many purchases, what's our revenue? And that is the KPI that you're hitting there. So is that increasing consistently as you're putting money behind Meta, or is that going down and then it's kind of working backwards?
It's easy to do when Meta is your primary channel, right? Because then you're just looking at top line revenue relative to marketing spend. But I imagine that makes a lot of people uncomfortable if they're spending money on YouTube, on Meta, on TikTok, on Google, and let's not bring media into the equation at all, right? You're spending on podcasts and radio and television programmatically. All of a sudden, how does someone say, I'm increasing Meta spend, but how does this really tie to overall top line revenue, especially when I'm spending so much money in other places, and Meta is 18% of my total overall media mix. So how would you respond to that?
I would say it's tricky.
Yeah, sure.
I would say it's
Let's
very
honest.
tricky. I'd say it's tricky, and I don't think there's a perfect answer to it. I think you have to really look at your data and look at where your customers are coming from, and it could be like where your demographic is spending most of their time, right? Like if you're looking at like 20 to 30, let's say, maybe most of them are on Meta or TikTok, and that's where most of them are coming from. I mean, there's things that you could do to kind of get more insight into this, right? Post-purchase surveys, where did you hear about us? It's not perfect. People might say Instagram, but maybe they saw you first on TikTok. So It's not the best way, but it's more information, and the more information you could get, the better it is.
Champagne problems.
Yeah.
As long as top line revenue is growing, I'm happy.
Exactly.
And that's really the bottom line. Obviously, we want to optimize wherever we want to optimize, and we want to make the spend most efficient per channel. But what we don't want to do is hurt the overall campaign because we can't attribute.
Yeah.
And in today's world, I think that's increasingly becoming a problem where on the agency side need to do a better job of educating brands on what the landscape looks like, because the truth is attribution is not perfect. But I think there's this tendency to act like attribution is perfect. And so we run into this situation, and I think this tendency has really been caused by our side of the fence, which is marketers, where we act like we can attribute everything, but the truth is we are subject to the rules and regulations and laws and privacy and ever-changing climate, and it is getting more complicated to be able to tie a dollar back to a specific ad campaign,
right,
even though we can do it. I think another thing that is helpful with this is just looking at traffic data.
Right.
And we know that traffic data is not conversion data, and organic traffic is going to convert at a significantly higher rate, especially depending on where it's coming in from. But if you're looking at the traffic data coming in from all of these different platforms, you sort of get an understanding, especially when you correlate that with conversion data. It starts to paint a picture of what's really going on. So even when it comes to attribution, it's really important in 2024 for brands to zoom out and look at the entire picture so that they're not making bad decisions on incomplete data.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say you can run meta ads and see a negative return and be like, no, it's fine, right? There's definitely KPIs and metrics set there for sure, and you want to see positive returns, but it's still looking at the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if a company is losing money, they need to pay real close attention to attribution.
For sure.
Whereas when a company is making money, I think that's where you actually need to get a little bit looser on attribution and just know the overall media mix is working.
Yeah. It also depends on the buying cycle too, right? Or the buyer's journey. How long is it going to take for somebody to make a purchase, right? Is it something that's very expensive, $500-$600? That's typically a longer buyer journey, right? So you're going to have to hit them 7, 8, 9, 12 times. Get them through email maybe too. And then where do you really attribute that to, right? Because they saw so many different ads. Is it the last one? You could say, but it could also be the first ad they saw too.
For sure. It comes down to structuring your business properly too. I mean, the name of the game on low ticket items right now is customer acquisition cost versus lifetime value. We just know with CPMs the way they are, when someone comes in and they're selling a product for $50, I know you're going to lose 2-3 times, the value of that product in the acquisition cost of the customer.
Right.
Now, if you're in the repeat purchase business, apparel, software, subscriptions, you have the ability to make that money back, in repeat purchases. And as long as you are making enough money in repeat purchases to be profitable, the entire campaign makes sense. And now it becomes a cash flow problem where you have to be able to offset those early losses in order to become profitable.
Right.
But I think it's important for brands to know that the market is the market and CPMs are the CPMs. And even though you can outperform on certain key variables like click-through rates and conversion rates and the rest of it, it's important for you to forecast that math within Meta and not play a business game that even if you're hitting incredibly high benchmarks, your business is still not profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And brands have to realize things are up and down all the time. I mean, it could be seasonality. It could be Meta deciding CPMs are going to be high for a month, right? It could be a lot of different things. It is a long-term play most of the time. It's not turn it on for 15 days and let's see what happens. And if results are bad, turn it off. We got to run this for a full strategy and see what's really going on.
I'm going to ask you a last question. So CPMs have been going up year over year, and CPMs have pulled back a little bit. I mean, there was we were bordering a $20 CPM, a few months ago, and they've pulled back slightly. What's happening in 2024? CPMs continue to go up, they stabilize, they go down. I know a lot of this ties to the economy, because the bigger spenders in the marketplace have the biggest effect on CPMs. Because the more volume, it's essentially just an auction. The more that's getting spent, CPMs go up. So what's your perspective on where CPMs are going this year?
I think they're going to go up.
Yeah.
I think they'll forever keep going higher and higher.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough for them to get as low as it was in 2020, for example, or 2021. they're just going to continue to go up. I mean, everyone is digital and everyone is going to continue to be digital. There's hundreds, thousands of Shopify stores opening up daily, and people are just spending and spending and spending on Meta, TikTok, across the board. So I think just getting attention is going to be more expensive. It's our job as media buyers to make that attention work for us.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
David, thank you.
Thank you, Adam.